Eighth dengue fever case confirmed as Parkett Center of outbreak is closed for a month. Carrie Lam gears up for her first Facebook Live Q&A as chief executive.
Hello, good evening. One more person was diagnosed with dengue fever today, bringing the number of locally contracted cases to 8. The highest in more than a decade. The government has closed Lion Rock Park for 30 days, where most patients had visited before they fell ill. Kena Chu has more.
Of the 8 people diagnosed with locally contracted dengue fever, 6 of them had previously visited Lion Rock Park in Wong Tai Sin.
That is a very important signal for us to take special precautions to prevent the disease from spreading further.
The park, one of the suspected contraction sources, spans roughly 5 hectares. That's large enough to accommodate the activity range of less than 200 meters for the Asian tiger mosquito, which spreads dengue fever. The Food and Environmental Hygiene Department carried out mosquito controls this morning. Stagnant water and mosquito larvae at the park's barbecue zone were cleared up. Representatives from the Center for Health Protection also inspected the site. A local cluster of dengue fever was last recorded in 2002. The number then consistently remained low until it bounced back this year. CHP's communicable disease consultant Tran Shuk Kwan says the situation is worrying as it could erupt in an epidemic. She noted the transmission of dengue virus can be rapid as mosquitoes reproduce quickly and can bite multiple people at a time. In 2014, the Yoyogi Park in Japan was temporarily closed to public following a dengue fever outbreak. The suspension now applies to Lion Rock Park as well. Kena Chu, TVB News.
Now, this just in, the Centre for Health Protection has confirmed 3 more cases of dengue fever, bringing the total number of patients to 11.
Well, as Hong Kong worries over this latest dengue fever outbreak, health officials are advising people to use mosquito repellent to protect themselves when outdoors. Here's Michelle An with some tips from the experts on choosing the right product.
To prevent mosquito bites and thus dengue fever, experts stress the importance in choosing the right repellent. Repellents with the chemical DEET are best.
DEET, which is a chemical very useful and effective to protect people from mosquito bites. And other products like the essential oils, like the lemon oil, there is not enough evidence to support using the essential oil or the extract from tomato. So that's why we recommend using DEET.
But he added that beyond a certain point, higher DEET concentration in a repellent does not necessarily mean better protection benefits. And kids shouldn't use repellent with a high concentration of DEET because it can irritate their skin.
When putting on mosquito repellent, don't forget your face. Experts advise to first spray repellent on your hands and rub it over the whole face.
Another expert says repellents may lose their effectiveness when in contact with rain.
In summer, there are a lot of rains. When there is a heavy rain, all the chemicals will be washed out. So if the chemicals are washed out, it won't be effective in stopping mosquito from breeding.
According to the Center of Health Protection, dengue fever is transmitted through the Asian tiger mosquito. For those who are infected for the first time, the consequence is generally mild. But if a person is infected again, then severe dengue may occur and it can be fatal. Michelle An, TVB News.
Other local news now. Carrie Lam will start her first Facebook Live session at 8 p.m. It's aimed to help her collect public views for her policy address. It's unclear how many questions the chief executive can take during the half-hour session. Facebook users have already left hundreds of comments, such as calls to strengthen monitoring of the MTRC and what the government plans to do to shorten waiting times at hospitals.
The Civil Service Bureau has opened its doors for those interested in working as clerical assistants. No work experience is required for the office job, which pays at least $13,000 a month. The post would require people to perform duties related to finance, licensing and registration, personnel, and more. Applicants must have completed Secondary 4 education. Selected candidates are expected to attend a skills test and be able to type 20 Chinese words and 30 English words per minute. Recruitment will end on August 30th.
Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad arrived in China seeking to renegotiate or even cancel billions of US dollars worth of Chinese invested projects entangled in domestic graft probes. Sino-Malay ties have been strained since Mahathir in May suspended unpopular Chinese projects authorized by former Premier Najib Razak. That's when he returned to power in a stunning election victory. The 93-year-old has vowed to discuss the unfair deals on his visit. Beijing says any problems Kuala Lumpur has with multi-billion-dollar Chinese-backed infrastructure projects should be handled through friendly negotiation. And Turkey is trying to reassure international investors that it can fix the economic problems that have seen the country spiral into a currency crisis. This comes as the United States is considering even more sanctions unless an American pastor is released. Alan Buckner reports.
Among investor concerns about Turkey is that the country has amassed high levels of debt to fuel growth in recent years. As its currency drops, that debt becomes more expensive. The lira plunged almost 40% since the beginning of the year in the face of U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum and sanctions against some government ministers. Following a conference call with European allies, a Turkish government spokesman said the country's leaders, who also faced the steel tariff, expressed solidarity. He said the leaders of Germany and France agreed the U.S. stance is not the correct method. Ankara did get a boost Wednesday after Qatar pledged to invest $15 billion in Turkey's financial system and banks. But Turkey could be facing more problems after it slapped retaliatory tariffs on a range of U.S. goods, including alcohol and cars, and vowed to boycott American electronic goods. The U.S. is considering further sanctions if Turkey doesn't release Andrew Brunson, an American pastor who has been charged by Turkey with espionage in connection with a failed 2016 coup.
Turkey, they have not proven to be a good friend. They have a great Christian pastor there. He's a very innocent man. How are you doing with sanctions, please?
Sir, we're doing well. As you know, we were very clear with our counterparts there, both Secretary Pompeo and myself, on the release of the pastor. We've put sanctions on several of their cabinet members. Working with you, we have more that we're planning to do if they don't release him quickly.
Mnuchin didn't specify what any new sanctions might entail. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Still ahead in tonight's news. More pro-Beijing lawmakers vent their anger at FCC and the Hong Kong independence talk held at the club last Tuesday. Lucky escape for more than 160 people as their plane skids off runway in Manila. And fencer Vivian Kong selected to carry the Hong Kong flag at tomorrow's opening ceremony for Asian Games.
用恒生信用卡盡享升級美讚低至4折優惠，同至愛親朋共享更多窩心時刻。快啲嚟以下升級食府享受滋味啦！日日最想點子獎賞，借定唔借，玩得到先好借。
Welcome back. Pro-Beijing politicians continue to toe the line from mainland officials who condemned the FCC's invitation to Andy Chan, an advocate of Hong Kong independence. That's also reignited debate on whether Hong Kong should legislate a controversial national security bill. It's all been said before, but reiterated once again by pro-Beijing figures. This time, Chen Yutong. FCC's actions stirred Chinese people's emotions. We don't tolerate collusion of powers to split China. They need to take responsibility, said the Hong Kong deputy to the National People's Congress. He said legislating Article 23 of the Basic Law should be done as soon as possible. Article 23 states that Hong Kong shall enact laws to prohibit any act of treason, secession, sedition, subversion against the Central People's Government. Authorities faced strong backlash when they tried to legislate the National Security Bill in 2003. Yet some legislators think it's time to reconsider.
As politicians, who would like to touch on Article 23? Who would like to repeat what happened in 2003? Nobody. So we are waiting for the right time politically, but how to get this right time earlier, but not to wait for China lose her patience to Hong Kong in terms of protection of state security and her sovereignty. I believe we need to have the cooperation of the sensible members, moderate members.
When the former Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping visited the South in 1992, he said China should be wary of the rightist ideas, but also we should prevent the extreme leftists. I think that statement is equally applicable in Hong Kong in 2018.
He said universal suffrage has to come before Article 23 legislation.
Tragedy on Clearwater Bay Road today. A 4-year-old girl was killed in a traffic accident. She was crossing the road with her mother and brother at around 1 p.m. when a 7-seater apparently lost control. And at around noon, a car plowed into a pedestrian street in Aberdeen. It crashed into a vegetable stall. 2 men and 1 woman were taken to Queen Mary Hospital with injuries.
A baby was found in a toilet at Hong Kong International Airport this morning. A cleaner found the body at a restricted area on the arrivals level. It was wrapped inside a plastic bag in the women's restroom near the gate. The newborn baby, believed to be a boy, was certified dead after it arrived at North Lantau Hospital.
Overseas again, and a Chinese passenger jet veered off a runway, got stuck in a muddy field during a midnight landing in the Philippine capital. All on board were safe, with only a few minor injuries reported. The accident happened as torrential monsoon rains flooded many low-lying areas of Manila over the past week. Jeff Tang reports.
This is as close to a brush with death as these passengers would ever hope to be in again. According to Philippine aviation officials, Xiamen Air Flight 8667 had failed its first landing attempt at Manila's Ninoy Aquino International Airport, as poor visibility may have hindered pilots' view of the runway. It circled around before attempting a second landing, but lost contact with the control tower. Reports say the Boeing 737, carrying 165 people on board, appeared to have bounced in a hard landing before veering off the runway. It rolled to a stop in a rain-soaked grassy area with its lights off. One of the plane's 2 engines was torn off, as well as one of its wheels. All 165 people on board scrambled out through an emergency slide. It was a stroke of good fortune that only 4 passengers sustained scratches. The other 161 people, including 8 crew members, were unhurt and taken to an airport terminal where they were given blankets and food before going to a hotel. Investigators have retrieved the plane's flight recorder and will wait for the aircraft to be lifted before getting the cockpit voice recorder to determine the cause of the accident. Officials expressed relief that a disaster was avoided, adding that crews were working overtime to get the airport up and running again.
We're trying our best to extricate the aircraft as soon as possible.
Officials initially said the airport could reopen by noon, but later extended the closure for several hours as emergency crews continued to remove excess fuel and debris from the runway. A smaller runway for domestic flights remained open. As a result, dozens of outbound international flights were cancelled, while many inbound flights were diverted elsewhere in the region. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
The US Defense Department says a Veterans Day military parade ordered by President Donald Trump won't happen this year. But Defense Secretary Jim Mattis denied a report that the estimated cost of holding the parade is $92 million.
Whoever told you that is probably smoking something that's legal in my state, but not in most states. So we looked at approximate costs for certain elements of it, but those were very premature, and they made it very clear when they briefed me, we will get you the cost estimate. I have not seen it yet.
According to officials, roughly $50 million would cover Pentagon costs for equipment, personnel and other support. The Pentagon says the military and the White House have agreed to explore opportunities for 2019. Trump decided he wanted a military parade in Washington after attending France's Bastille Day celebration last year.
The Italian government has launched a probe into the country's biggest toll road operator. This came just hours after Rome said Autostrade could face a hefty fine or lose its concession over a bridge collapse on Tuesday that killed at least 38 people. The small fire broke out in one of the businesses close to the ruins as authorities continue to look for up to 20 people still missing. The Transport Ministry is giving the company 15 days to show it had met all its contractual obligations, adding it wanted Autostrade to rebuild the bridge at its own expense. An 80-meter section of the motorway collapsed in busy lunchtime traffic on Tuesday, plunging dozens of vehicles 45 meters below.
To India, where thousands of people are paying homage after one of their longest-serving lawmakers, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, passed away at age 93. The poet-politician died Thursday in a New Delhi hospital where he was suffering from a kidney infection and chest congestion. Prominent politicians, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, rushed to visit him after he was put on life support. Vajpayee served 3 times as India's Prime Minister for 13 days in 1996, for 13 months between 1998 to 1999, and then from 1999 to year 2004. The Hindu nationalist is remembered most for setting off a nuclear arms race with rival Pakistan, but later reached across the border to begin a groundbreaking peace process. So James, Asian Games tomorrow, what's happening?
Yeah, it's going to be a big day for one local Hong Kong athlete there. Fencer Vivian Kong will carry the Hong Kong flag at tomorrow's opening ceremony of the Asian Games in Jakarta. A 24-year-old won 2 bronze medals in Incheon 4 years ago. Earlier this year, she won a gold medal at the Asian Championships in Bangkok. Hong Kong is sending more than 580 athletes to Indonesia. Besides Kong, other medal hopefuls include cycling veteran Sarah Lee, windsurfer Haley Chan, and the 10-pin bowlers.
That's the news.
Thanks for joining us. Good night.
Bye-bye.